The storm outside was merciless, wind rattling the diner's old windows as rain poured in sheets across the parking lot. Most drivers had pulled off the highway to wait it out, their trucks and sedans lined up like stranded ships. Inside, the diner hummed with the low clatter of dishes and the faint hiss of frying oil, the kind of late-night refuge where stories crossed paths without warning. Moving between the tables was a woman who carried the weariness of the world in her bones but disguised it with a smile. Her name was Tasha Whitfield. At 32, she worked long shifts at the diner, her life stitched together by paychecks that never stretched far enough. The lines under her eyes told of battles no one saw, but her spirit, though bruised, was not broken. That night, as Tasha refilled a coffee cup for a trucker, the diner door swung open. 3 children slipped inside, drenched from the rain. They didn't belong in a place like this at midnight. Their hair was wet, their shoes muddy, and their small bodies shivered from the cold. The oldest, a boy with determined eyes, guided his 2 younger sisters to a corner near the door. They didn't ask for a table, didn't look around for service. They just huddled together, clutching each other like lifelines. Tasha froze, the sight hitting her like a memory she couldn't quite name. Something about the way the boy squared his shoulders, trying to look strong when he was clearly terrified, cut deep into her. She approached slowly, kneeling so her voice would meet them softly. "Hey, sweethearts. You all right? You look like you've been out in that storm too long." The boy lifted his chin. "We're fine. We don't need anything." His words were firm, but his voice betrayed him. The smallest girl sniffled, her lips trembling. Tasha glanced toward the counter. She could already feel her boss, Mr. Vaughn, staring from behind the register. He was a man who ran the diner by the book, customers pay, or they don't stay. She had clashed with him more than once about people who had nowhere else to go. Before Vaughn could intervene, Tasha rose. "Come with me," she said gently, motioning them toward an empty booth at the back. The boy hesitated, but the younger girl tugged on his sleeve. Finally, he relented, and the 3 slid into the booth, shoulders pressed together. Tasha leaned close. "Don't you worry about the bill, okay? Let me take care of it." The boy's eyes narrowed, suspicious. "Why?" "Because you need it," she answered simply. They didn't speak again, but the youngest girl whispered a thank you, so faint Tasha almost didn't hear it. In the kitchen, she scribbled down an order: soup, grilled cheese, hot chocolate. Comfort food, warm and filling. She knew Vaughn would scold her, maybe even dock her pay. But she also knew what it meant to feel invisible and hungry, praying someone would notice. And from the farthest booth, someone was noticing. Seated alone with a cup of untouched coffee was a man in his 40s, dressed casually in jeans and a weather jacket that didn't hint at the fortune he carried. His name was Adrian Cross. To the world, he was a billionaire CEO of a logistics empire that spanned continents. To everyone in that diner, he was just another traveler passing through. But Adrian wasn't just passing time. He had been quietly observing, watching the way Tasha moved with urgency, not for tips, but because her heart compelled her. Watching the way she shielded the children from Vaughn's sharp eyes, the way she placed herself between them and the world's cruelty without hesitation. He leaned back, unseen, but his mind raced. He had seen countless acts of generosity wrapped in self-interest, kindness used as a tool for networking. What he saw in Tasha was something else entirely. She was giving with no thought of reward. When Tasha returned with the food, the children's eyes widened. The boy tried to protest, but hunger betrayed him, and soon they were eating quickly, as though afraid the plates might vanish. Tasha stayed close, refilling their water, slipping extra rolls onto the table. At one point, the boy looked up, cheeks flushed. "Why are you helping us? We don't got nothing to give you." Tasha smiled faintly, though her throat tightened. "Because once, someone helped me when I had nothing too. And because you matter, whether you believe it or not." The boy said nothing, but his eyes softened. From across the diner, Adrian felt something shift in him. He had read reports about children lost in the foster system, about poverty statistics, about lives reduced to numbers on charts. But here, those numbers had faces, frightened, hungry, grateful. As the night stretched on, the children grew drowsy. The youngest fell asleep with her head on the table, the middle girl curled against her brother's arm. Tasha brought an old blanket from her car and tucked it gently around them, brushing damp hair from the smallest girl's forehead. Vaughn finally stormed over, his patience gone. "Tasha," he hissed under his breath, "this is not a shelter. You can't just feed strays. You're costing me money." Her jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Then take it out of my pay. But they're staying here tonight." Vaughn's face reddened. "You're gonna regret this." "Maybe," Tasha shot back, "but I'd regret letting them go back out there more." Adrian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of admiration burning brighter. He was used to seeing people bow to power. Yet here was a woman with no money, no safety net, willing to risk her job just to protect 3 strangers. What Tasha didn't know was that every decision she made that night was being weighed by a man who could alter her future with a single word. Adrian hadn't planned on stopping at this diner. But something about this storm, these children, and this waitress was no accident. At one point, the boy looked up, cheeks flushed. "Why are you helping us? We don't got nothing to give you." Tasha smiled faintly, though her throat tightened. "Because once, someone helped me when I had nothing too. And because you matter, whether you believe it or not." The boy said nothing, but his eyes softened. From across the diner, Adrian felt something shift in him. He had read reports about children lost in the foster system, about poverty statistics, about lives reduced to numbers on charts. But here, those numbers had faces, frightened, hungry, grateful. As the night stretched on, the children grew drowsy. The youngest fell asleep with her head on the table, the middle girl curled against her brother's arm. Tasha brought an old blanket from her car and tucked it gently around them, brushing damp hair from the smallest girl's forehead. Vaughn finally stormed over, his patience gone. "Tasha," he hissed under his breath, "this is not a shelter. You can't just feed strays. You're costing me money." Her jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Then take it out of my pay. But they're staying here tonight." Vaughn's face reddened. "You're gonna regret this." "Maybe," Tasha shot back, "but I'd regret letting them go back out there more." Adrian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of admiration burning brighter. He was used to seeing people bow to power. Yet here was a woman with no money, no safety net, willing to risk her job just to protect 3 strangers. What Tasha didn't know was that every decision she made that night was being weighed by a man who could alter her future with a single word. Adrian hadn't planned on stopping at this diner. But something about this storm, these children, and this waitress was no accident. And before the night was over, her life, and the lives of those children, would twist in ways none of them could have foreseen. The storm outside finally eased into a steady drizzle, but the night inside the diner carried its own tension. Tasha kept glancing toward the children, their small forms now huddled together under the blanket she had given them. Sleep had overtaken them, the youngest girl's hand still gripping the handle of her empty hot chocolate mug as though afraid it might slip away. Mr. Vaughn stomped back to the counter, muttering about rules and freeloaders. But Tasha barely noticed. Her focus was on the kids. She knew what would happen if anyone called child services. The system could separate them, scatter them into different foster homes, maybe even different towns. She couldn't bear the thought of those little hands being pulled apart. Across the diner, Adrian Cross leaned forward in his booth, his decision crystallizing. He hadn't come here to play savior. In fact, he had slipped into the diner to escape the suffocating weight of his own empire for a night. But life had a way of placing him exactly where he was meant to be, and tonight, fate had introduced him to Tasha Whitfield. Adrian rose slowly, carrying his half-finished cup of coffee toward the counter. He left a $50 bill by the register, ignoring Vaughn's raised eyebrows, and then walked to Tasha. "You mind if I sit?" he asked quietly, nodding toward the booth across from her. Tasha blinked, surprised. She had barely noticed the man until now. "It's late. Don't you want to head home before the roads get worse?" He slid into the booth anyway, his presence calm but commanding. "Sometimes the road takes you where you need to go," he said. His eyes flicked toward the children. "Those yours?" "No," Tasha replied firmly. "They came in soaked, hungry. I couldn't turn them away." Adrian studied her for a moment. "Most people would have looked the other way." "Most people aren't me," she answered, her tone sharp but steady. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You're right. Most people aren't." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the diner's old ceiling fan. Finally, Adrian leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I couldn't help overhearing. You paid for their food yourself, didn't you?" Tasha bristled, ready to defend herself. "They needed it. That's all that matters." "It does," Adrian agreed. Then his gaze softened. "Do you know what happens next for them?" Her shoulders slumped. "If someone reports it, they'll end up in the system. And once they're in, who knows? They'll lose each other. That boy, he's holding those girls together. Without him," she trailed off, her chest tightening. Adrian's expression grew thoughtful, almost pained. He had seen his fair share of boardroom wars, mergers that tore families apart, but never something as raw as this. And if there were another option? Tasha frowned. "What do you mean?" Adrian hesitated, then made a choice. "My name's Adrian Cross." The name didn't register at first. She blinked, waiting for him to continue. "I run Cross Global," he said quietly, watching for recognition. Her mouth parted slightly. Everyone had heard of Cross Global: shipping, logistics, properties. A company worth billions. A company built on one man's decisions. "You're him?" she whispered, almost disbelieving. Adrian nodded. "And I'm not telling you this to impress you. I'm telling you because I can help. Those kids don't have to go into the system. I have the means to make sure they're safe. Together." Tasha shook her head, confused. "Why would you care? You don't even know them." "I don't," Adrian admitted. "But I know what I see. And what I see is a woman who just risked her job to protect 3 strangers. You've done more for them tonight than most people would in a lifetime. That kind of courage deserves to be backed up." Her chest tightened, her instincts warring inside her. She had lived long enough to know that offers too good to be true usually were. But something about the way Adrian spoke, calm, steady, without condescension, told her this wasn't a ploy. "What are you saying?" she asked cautiously. "I'm saying I want to help them," Adrian replied. "Not just a hot meal. A home. A future. And I don't think I should do it without you." Her eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes. They trust you. You've already become their anchor. If I step in alone, I'm just another stranger with money. But with you," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "With you, they might actually believe they're safe." Tasha looked toward the children, their faces peaceful for the first time all night. Emotion swelled in her chest. She had always wished she could do more, but her life was barely stitched together as it was. Now here was a man offering something she never thought possible. Still, doubt lingered. "How do I know this isn't just charity for you? Some rich man's way of easing guilt?" Adrian's gaze hardened, not with anger, but with conviction. "Because I've seen money fix buildings, not people. And I don't need redemption. What I need is to stop walking away when I can actually change something. This isn't about guilt. It's about choice. Tonight, I choose to do something real. For the first time, Tasha didn't have an immediate reply. She looked at him, really looked, and saw no arrogance, no smugness. Just sincerity. The children stirred then, the boy waking with a start. His eyes darted nervously toward Adrian. "Who's he?" he whispered to Tasha. She hesitated only a second before answering softly, "Someone who wants to help." The boy frowned, uncertain. "People say that a lot. Then they leave." Adrian leaned forward, his voice gentle. "I'm not leaving. Not this time." The boy studied him carefully, as though weighing his soul, then looked to Tasha. She nodded faintly, and the boy slowly relaxed, though doubt lingered in his eyes. By dawn, the storm outside had faded. The neon sign still flickered, but inside the diner, something had shifted forever. Adrian stood, leaving his card on the table. "I'll make the calls. I'll handle the paperwork. But I need you with them, Tasha. Think about it." She stared at the card, then at the sleeping children. Her heart raced with fear, hope, and disbelief all tangled together. For years, her life had been about survival, not change. But maybe, just maybe, this was the moment everything turned. Because one act of kindness, witnessed by a man who could move mountains, had the power to rewrite not just her story, but the story of 3 children who had almost been forgotten. And as the morning light broke across the wet pavement, Tasha realized something she never thought she'd believe again: sometimes, miracles don't come in the form of angels. Sometimes, they come as strangers sipping coffee in the corner booth of a diner.